The night in the forest. It was a quiet night in the small mountain town of Redwood Valley. The sky was dark, and only the moonlight touched the tops of the trees. Ethan Walker, a young forest ranger, was doing his late patrol. He had been working alone for many nights, but this one felt different. Something in the air was strange, heavy and almost electric. He parked his jeep near the forest gate and stepped out. The wind whispered between the tall pines, carrying a faint sound, like crying. Ethan stopped, his flashlight shaking slightly in his hand. He listened again, and there it was. A soft sob, distant but real. He frowned, thinking maybe a lost child had wandered into the woods. He called out, "Hello, is anyone there?" But no answer came back. Ethan followed the sound, pushing through thick branches. The crying grew louder, mixed now with a strange humming noise. His heart pounded as he stepped into a small clearing and froze. There, near a fallen tree, were two small figures, glowing faintly in the moonlight. At first, he thought they were children wrapped in shiny blankets, but when they turned toward him, he gasped. Their skin was pale blue, and their eyes were large and golden. Their hair shimmered like silver threads, moving slightly even though there was no wind. Ethan's mouth went dry. He wanted to run but couldn't. The smaller one hid behind her sister, trembling. The older one looked at him with wide eyes, full of fear and pain. Her arm was bleeding, but not red. The blood glowed faint green. Ethan's training kicked in. He slowly raised his hands, showing he meant no harm. "It's okay," he whispered. "I won't hurt you." They didn't speak but seemed to understand. The older girl tilted her head and made a soft sound, almost like a chirp. Ethan took a step closer, careful and slow. He saw strange marks on the ground. Circles burned into the dirt. Something had crashed here. Maybe a ship, he realized. The air smelled like metal and smoke, and the trees nearby were scorched. He looked up, and for a moment, he thought he saw a faint blue trail fading in the night sky. Whatever happened, these two little ones were alone now, scared and hurt. Ethan knelt down and opened his small first aid kit. The older girl backed away, but stopped when the younger one whimpered. He smiled gently, took out some bandages, and wrapped her glowing arm. To his surprise, her skin was warm, not cold as he expected. When he finished, she touched the bandage curiously. A faint smile crossed her face, small but real. Ethan whispered softly, "You're safe now." The younger one looked at him and made a sound. One word, broken but clear. "Home?" Ethan's chest tightened. He nodded slowly. "Yes, I'll help you get home." Suddenly, the ground trembled. Ethan looked around, thinking it was an earthquake, but then he saw a flash in the sky. A distant light moving fast toward the forest. The older girl screamed, her golden eyes wide with terror. She grabbed her sister's hand and tried to pull her away. Ethan shouted, "Wait!" "What is it?" Before he could move, a deep humming filled the air. The trees bent as if a storm had hit, though no wind blew. A bright beam of light shot down in the distance, disappearing behind the hill. Ethan covered his eyes. When he looked again, the two girls were holding onto him tightly, trembling. Whatever was coming, they were terrified of it. Ethan made a quick choice. He lifted the smaller girl into his arms and signaled the other to follow. They ran through the forest, branches snapping underfoot. The sound behind them grew louder. A strange machine-like whine. Ethan didn't look back. He just ran, his lungs burning. The older girl followed close, still holding the glowing bandage on her arm. After what felt like forever, they reached his jeep. Ethan pushed the girls inside and started the engine. He drove fast toward his cabin at the edge of town. Behind them, the sky flashed again, blue and white. Something was searching the forest, moving in sweeping lines of light. When they reached the cabin, Ethan quickly locked the doors. The girls hid under a blanket on the couch, whispering in a strange musical language. Ethan tried to calm them down. gave them water and some crackers. They watched him with big eyes, curious but still scared. For hours, Ethan stayed awake, listening for sounds outside. But the forest was silent again, as if nothing had happened. He finally sat down near the window, staring at the stars. "What have I gotten into?" he whispered. The older girl looked up at him and softly said another word. This time it sounded like, "Thank you." Ethan smiled. The visitor from the sky morning came slowly over Redwood Valley. The first light of dawn touched the cabin roof, and the forest began to wake. Birds sang softly. Mist rose from the ground, and everything looked calm again. But inside Ethan's small cabin, nothing felt normal. The two little alien girls were still asleep on the couch. Their silver hair glowed faintly even in daylight. Ethan sat at the table, sipping cold coffee, his mind spinning. He had spent the whole night wondering if it was all real. He looked at the glowing bandage on the older girl's arm and knew it was. He took a deep breath and whispered to himself, "What do I do now?" He thought about calling someone. The police, the army, anyone. But how could he explain this without sounding crazy? 2 alien children in his cabin wasn't something you could just report. Besides, they trusted him, and he couldn't betray that. Suddenly, the younger girl woke up and looked around. Her golden eyes sparkled like morning sunlight. She smiled when she saw Ethan, then pointed outside. Ethan frowned. "What is it?" he asked softly. The older girl woke too, tense and alert. She stood up quickly and moved to the window, her face going pale blue. Ethan followed her gaze. At first, he saw nothing, just the forest, the fog and the road. Then something moved in the mist, a tall shadow, slow and graceful. The air shimmered around it like heat on metal. Ethan's heart skipped a beat. He stepped back, reaching for his flashlight as if it could help. The girls pressed close to him, trembling again. And then, a blinding flash of white light filled the cabin. The floor vibrated and everything turned silent. When Ethan's vision cleared, he saw her. Standing in the middle of the cabin was a tall woman, or at least she looked like one. Her skin was deep silver, her eyes were like liquid gold, and her long hair floated around her, as if moved by invisible wind. She wore something that shimmered like water and light at the same time. Ethan could barely breathe. The 2 little ones ran to her, crying and holding onto her legs. The woman bent down, hugging them gently. Her eyes closed, and for a moment, the room glowed softly. Ethan realized this must be their mother. He took a step back, unsure if he should speak or stay quiet. Then the woman looked at him. Her gaze was strong but kind. She said something in a soft, echoing voice that Ethan couldn't understand. The sound wasn't just heard. It was felt, deep inside his mind. It was like music and words mixed together. She reached out her hand toward him. Ethan hesitated, but then slowly took it. The moment their fingers touched, a warm light spread through the room. Images flashed in his mind. Stars, planets, a shining silver city floating in clouds. He saw the 2 girls running and laughing, and then a great explosion in the sky. A crash, fear, and then himself, finding them in the forest. When it ended, he was breathing hard. He finally understood. Their ship had crashed, and she had come to find them. The mother looked at him with gratitude in her golden eyes. She placed a hand on her heart and bowed slightly. Ethan swallowed hard and said quietly, "You're welcome." It was all he could say. The younger girl tugged at her mother's robe, saying something excitedly. The woman smiled and turned back to Ethan. She raised her other hand, and a small sphere of blue light appeared above her palm. It floated toward Ethan and stopped in front of his chest. The air hummed softly, and Ethan felt warmth spreading through his body. "What is this?" he whispered. The woman spoke again, and somehow he understood this time. Her words echoed inside his head, "A gift of life for saving mine." Before he could ask more, the light entered his chest, and disappeared. He gasped, but there was no pain, only calm. It felt like something had awakened inside him. His vision sharpened, his mind felt clear and strong. The world around him seemed more alive. The woman smiled faintly. Then she looked up, and the roof of the cabin shimmered. Turning transparent, Ethan saw the sky above split open with a glowing portal. Wind rushed in, swirling papers and dust. The girls held their mother's hands, ready to go. Ethan stepped forward. "Wait," he said. "Will I ever see you again?" The woman looked at him for a long moment, then said, "When the stars remember your name, we will meet again." Her words echoed softly as she and her daughters began to rise into the light. Ethan shielded his eyes, watching them vanish into the glowing sky. Then, silence. The portal closed, and the forest was still again. Ethan stood there, heart racing. He looked at his hands. Faint blue sparkles danced across his skin. He didn't know what kind of gift he had received, but deep inside, he knew his life would never be the same. That night, when he finally stepped outside, the stars seemed brighter, closer somehow, and among them, one star pulsed softly, like it was watching him. Ethan smiled, not out of fear, but of wonder. He whispered, "Goodbye, little ones." And far above, in the endless sky, a faint echo replied, "Goodbye, human." The gift awakens. The night after the strange visitors left, the forest around Ethan's cabin felt quiet. Too quiet. The crickets had stopped singing. The air felt heavy, and the stars above seemed to burn brighter than ever. Ethan couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw that glowing blue sphere again, the one that had entered his chest. He could still feel it. A faint hum under his skin, like a small heartbeat that wasn't his. He got up and looked at himself in the mirror. Nothing looked different, but when he leaned closer, he saw a faint shimmer in his eyes, a soft golden light that flickered and disappeared. "Okay," he whispered. "Either I'm going crazy, or I'm something else now." The next morning, he went to work like usual. He didn't tell anyone about what happened. Who would believe it? But as he walked through the forest, he started noticing things. The birds didn't fly away when he came near. The trees seemed to whisper, their leaves shifting gently, even without wind. And when he touched a broken branch, it glowed faintly, then started to heal itself. Ethan pulled his hand back, shocked. "What the hell?" he muttered. He touched another branch. This time carefully, again the faint glow appeared, and the bark repaired itself slowly. He stared in disbelief, realizing that somehow, the alien gift was giving him power. For days, Ethan experimented in secret. He found he could make small plants grow faster, just by focusing on them. He could sense living things around him. Animals, trees, even insects. It was like the world was speaking in a language he was only beginning to understand. One night, as he sat outside under the stars, the sky flickered, not like lightning, something else. A strange, vertical line of blue light opened far away in the horizon. It looked almost like the same portal he had seen before. But this one wasn't calm. It twisted and sparked violently. Ethan's heart raced. He felt something deep in his chest. A pull. A voice echoed in his mind. Faint but familiar. "Help! Please!" It was one of the little alien girls. Her voice sounded scared, distant, weak. Ethan stood up instantly. He didn't understand how he could hear her, but he knew one thing. She was in trouble. The glowing in his chest grew brighter. Guiding him toward the forest, he grabbed his jacket and flashlight, though he already knew he wouldn't need light this time. The blue glow in his chest was enough to see the path ahead. As he ran through the trees, the ground pulsed under his feet. Strange symbols flickered faintly on the rocks, glowing like ancient runes. The air grew cold, and he could hear a low humming from the distance. The same kind of sound he heard when the alien mother appeared. But this time, it wasn't calm. It sounded angry, broken. Finally, he reached a small valley and froze. A strange metal structure had crashed there. Half buried in the ground, it looked like a ship, but twisted and smoking. The blue light from the portal above shone down onto it, flickering wildly. Inside the wreck, he saw movement. A small hand pressed weakly against a cracked window. Glowing faintly, Ethan didn't think. He ran straight to it. He pulled at the metal, but it was too heavy. Then the light in his chest flared bright. The air vibrated, and the metal started to bend slowly. Ethan gritted his teeth, focusing all his energy. The sound of cracking metal filled the valley, and finally the door gave way. Inside, one of the little alien girls lay unconscious. The older sister was beside her, trying to protect her from the sparks and smoke. When she saw Ethan, her golden eyes widened in relief. She made a sound, not in words, but in feelings. He felt it in his mind. A rush of gratitude and fear. Ethan lifted the smaller one carefully. Her skin was cold, her glow dimming. He could feel her life slipping away. "No, no, don't you dare," he whispered. He held her close, and the blue light in his chest began to pulse faster. The older girl placed her small hand on his arm. Their lights merged, blue and gold, swirling like living fire. The energy spread, wrapping the little one in a cocoon of light. Ethan could feel his strength fading, but he didn't stop. He focused, remembering the mother's words. A gift of life. Slowly the little girl's glow returned. Her breathing steadied. Her small hands moved. The light around them softened and faded. Ethan fell to his knees, exhausted. The older sister hugged him, whispering something that sounded like, "Thank you again." But before they could rest, the sky roared. The broken portal above began to widen. Something dark was coming through, not the gentle silver ships from before. This one was massive and black. It crackled with red lightning and made a deep growling sound that shook the ground. The older girl looked at Ethan, eyes full of fear. She pointed upward and said one word he didn't need translation for. "Hunters!" Ethan's blood ran cold. He realized this wasn't just a rescue mission. Something was chasing them. And now it had found him too. He picked up the little one and stood beside the older sister. "All right," he said quietly. "Let's get out of here." The forest trembled as shadows moved across the ground. For the first time in his life, Ethan wasn't just a ranger anymore. He was a protector of 2 alien children, and maybe more than that. As they ran into the darkness, the stars above flickered again. The battle beneath the stars, the night sky above Redwood Valley, had never looked so strange. A giant dark shape moved through the clouds, glowing with red light and thunder. The hunters had arrived. Their ship hovered silently, massive like a floating mountain. The trees bent under the pressure of its presence, and the air burned with energy. Ethan stood at the edge of the valley, the 2 alien girls beside him. The older sister clutched her sibling's hand, their silver hair glowing faintly in the darkness. They looked terrified, but Ethan's eyes burned with determination. He had no weapon, no armor, no plan, only the strange light that lived inside him, the gift from their mother. He turned to the older girl and said quietly, "You trust me, right?" She nodded slowly. "Good," he whispered. "Then stay close to me, no matter what happens." The ground shook as a beam of red light struck the forest. Trees exploded into fire, and the smell of burning wood filled the air. Dark figures descended from the ship, floating like shadows. They weren't human. Tall, thin, with sharp armor that reflected red light. Their eyes glowed like molten metal, and their voices were a deep hiss. Ethan took a step forward, his heart racing. He could feel the blue energy inside him, reacting to the danger. It pulsed through his veins. Stronger than before, he raised his hand, and the air around him shimmered. A faint barrier of light formed, transparent but solid. The first red blast from the hunters hit it and stopped. The energy exploded outward, scattering sparks like stars. Ethan gasped, but didn't fall. The power had answered his will. The older girl looked at him with wide eyes, whispering something that sounded like protector. He didn't understand her words, but he felt their meaning. He wasn't just a ranger anymore. He was part of something larger, something that connected life across worlds. The hunters moved closer, their weapons glowing. Ethan clenched his fists and focused. The ground around him began to glow with blue light, forming strange circular patterns. The air trembled, and the sound of the forest seemed to fade away. Then he released it. A wave of pure energy that shot forward like a storm. The hunters were thrown back, crashing into the trees, but more of them descended from the ship. Dozens, maybe hundreds. The older girl placed her hands on the ground and started to hum. Her golden light joined his blue, merging into a bright white glow. Together, they created a shield around the little one who was still weak. Ethan looked at her and nodded. Then he faced the incoming swarm again. One of the hunters spoke in a harsh metallic voice. "Human, surrender the children. They belong to the Dominion." Ethan glared, his voice steady and cold. "Not anymore." The air pulsed, as if the planet itself agreed with him. The hunter charged, swinging a blade made of red fire. Ethan raised his arm. The blade stopped inches away, frozen in midair. The energy from his chest expanded outward, wrapping around his body like armor. Light blue veins of power ran across his skin, glowing brighter with each heartbeat. He pushed forward, and the hunter was thrown backward. Crashing into the dirt, more came, firing beams of red light. Ethan moved like the wind, faster than he ever thought possible. He blocked, dodged, and struck back with waves of energy. The forest became a battlefield of color. Blue, gold and red lights clashing under the stars. Every move he made was guided by something deep inside him. A memory that wasn't his. A knowledge from the gift. A connection to an ancient power beyond Earth. The older girl shouted something, pointing to the sky. Ethan looked up. The giant ship's core was opening. A red sphere spinning inside it, gathering energy. They were charging a weapon. If it fired, everything for miles would be destroyed. Ethan felt the ground shaking beneath his feet. He knew he couldn't run, couldn't hide. There was only one thing left, to fight. He turned to the girls and smiled softly. "Stay behind me," he said. "And whatever happens, don't give up hope." He closed his eyes. The light in his chest burned brighter than ever. Memories flashed through his mind. The mother's voice, the words she had said, a gift of life. Not a weapon, not destruction, life. He realized what it meant. The energy wasn't meant to kill, it was meant to awaken. He raised both his hands, and the light spread across the valley. Every tree, every leaf, every stone began to glow softly. The forest came alive. Roots burst from the ground, wrapping around the hunters. The earth itself moved, protecting Ethan and the girls. Animals ran from the trees, glowing with the same blue energy. Nature was fighting beside him. The ship above trembled as the energy wave reached it. Its red light dimmed, and cracks appeared across its surface. Ethan's body shook, with the power flowing through him. But he didn't stop. The forest roared. The sky burned bright, and then silence. When the light faded, the ship was gone. Only drifting ashes remained in the air. Ethan fell to his knees, breathing hard, his vision blurred. The older girl ran to him, holding his shoulders. The younger one hugged him tightly, whispering softly. He smiled weakly. "It's over," he whispered. "You're safe now." The sky above cleared, and the stars returned. But one of them, brighter than the rest, pulsed slowly. Ethan looked up, feeling warmth in his chest. He knew who it was. The mother, watching from afar. Her voice echoed gently in his mind. "You have done well." Guardian of Earth, Ethan smiled faintly. The girls held his hands, their golden eyes filled with light. The forest glowed softly around them, peaceful once again. And though he didn't know what came next, he knew one thing for sure. The universe was bigger than he ever imagined. And now, it had a protector who called Earth his home.